The title of this book is The History of Science Fiction and Fantasy and Summaries of Great Books to Read, authored by Martin K. Ettington and narrated by Martin K. Ettington. Chapter .01. Here's the summary page at the beginning of the book. Whether you're new to science fiction or have been reading this genre for years, I hope you will have as much fun reading this book as I had writing it. In this history, I've tried to include the best-known authors and their most famous and interesting works. Many of these stories are groundbreaking. Some launched new subgenres, and some talked about technology which is now real or being developed. I've read almost all of the novels mentioned here. I've also summarized various great novels throughout this book. These are stories you will enjoy reading. They might be examples of the changing genres or just really good yarns. There are a lot of stories I love in the sci-fi and fantasy realm, and I hope you like them too. I've literally read thousands of science fiction and fantasy books over the years, starting in the 1960s up until today. Some of the stories I've read have made significant marks on my life. My degree in engineering is also probably a result of my interests in science and technology from growing up reading the wonder, the vastness of these stories. Here are many of the best books I've read and enjoyed. The copyright page is as follows. This book is copyrighted for 2020. The History of Science Fiction and Fantasy and Summaries of Great Books to Read by Martin K. Ettington. All rights reserved, USA 2020, printed in the United States of America. If you'd like to know about other books written by Martin K. Ettington, you can look at his website at mkettingtonbooks.com. That's spelled mkettingtonbooks.com. His books are also available on Amazon, audiobooks on Audible and audiobooks.com, and other channels. Chapter 1.0 Introduction. I love science fiction and fantasy and have read thousands of these books during my life. I started by reading sci-fi comic books as a child, then graduated to sci-fi novels and fantasy. This genre exposed me to science and technology and is probably one of the main reasons I became an engineer. In recent years, I've written and published my own science fiction novels, which gives me more insight on how to write one of these books from the author's perspective. Although I've seen some academic books on the evolution of science fiction, I don't know of any by an avid reader and author on the development of this genre. I want you, the reader, to learn about some of the most fascinating stories I've read in science fiction and fantasy so you can enjoy them yourselves. The overall science fiction and fantasy genres have developed lots of subgenres too. We will also cover the common themes of these stories and their evolution. Finally, there's literally millions of science fiction and fantasy books which have been published, so there's no way I can cover even a small fraction of them. Instead, I'm focusing on the best novels I've read and ones which have become famous as milestones of these genres. I've also reviewed Hugo Award-winning novels to see if I'd overlooked any authors. The most important Hugo Award winners are also included here. In general, I wanted to include all of my favorite sci-fi books from the thousands I've read and hope that you will choose to read them too. For early 20th century authors and later, in each subchapter on different authors, I've generally structured them as follows. A picture of the author or their most famous book. My own comments about the author and book or series. A summary of the book or series, but not the entire story, or you might miss surprises and decide not to read it. And a biography or autobiography of the author. Chapter 2.0 Stories from Older Times. Epics and stories from prehistory to older civilizations provide the foundation for science fiction and fantasy. Man has told fantastic stories throughout history. 2.1 The Epic of Gilgamesh. And below this we see a picture of a statue of Gilgamesh, who is supposed to have been a giant holding a lion in his arms. The Epic of Gilgamesh is an epic poem from ancient Mesopotamia that's often regarded as the earliest surviving great work of literature and the second oldest religious text after the pyramid texts. The literary history of Gilgamesh begins with the 5 Sumerian poems about Bilgamesh, which is Sumerian for Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, dating from the 3rd dynasty of Ur, circa 2100 BC. These independent stories
Sample complete. Ready to continue?